For an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment. For an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment. For an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment. For an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment. For an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment. For an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment. Okay. I just want to try this. Of course, it's less grounding. I'm not sure if this is gonna hold. Normally I would double tie the string. Plus I'm short on battery. But I just wanted to reconnect myself. Okay, so I just injured myself, and the message of the injury was you know, healing takes time. That's basically the message of the injury. Healing takes time. And emotional wounds take a lot of time. Like a lot of time. Which is why proper nutrition, proper food is important. Wow. But also letting yourself hang from time to time. I don't know, I just had an experience. I injured my left foot. And then I talked about something, and when I walked back, I suddenly felt my strength coming back. Like, really strange how this sometimes happens. And really strange how it happened just now. Because the injury was at my heel. There's no need to show you. I'm just saying that I did it, and you just have to have faith that I'm not just talking about stuff. Because you can't really see it. But some things, you know, I tried like a trick. It's on recording. But it's gonna come later in the year. And I realized that was a clear boundary. But sometimes you have to overstep certain boundaries to see where you land. So now we're talking about solving problems. an inquisitive mind, this is the best world, because it's full of problems. But if you want to find solutions, then in a way you have to experiment, which is why I see diet as problematic. So I'm making experiments, and then I draw conclusions, and I compare, right? So I compare a life with sugar with a life without sugar. Sometimes I eat bananas, sometimes I don't eat bananas. Why? Because I started to have severe heartburn when I came back from Tanzania. And I failed to see why. Because in theory, I was doing a lot of the stuff that you're supposed to do. So I was mostly cooking my own food. I was eating vegetables. Okay, I did have a fondness for sugar. I have it less now. I drank adequate amounts of coffee, like 1 per day or something. I bought good quality food, often organic. I was then living also vegan for some time and vegetarian. And yet I was having real problems with my diet. I was full of acid. I had a very problematic relationship. I had problems with my parents, with my siblings. I had problems to lead a balanced life. Although I seemed to have certain abilities, I often felt stupid and inadequate. And I'm sure that a lot of us can relate to that. I also had problems with my eyes, which is why they gave me glasses, until I realized that the reason I had problems with my eyes was because I was watching too much TV, spending too much time in closed quarters, ate the wrong kind of foods, so my energy field became kind of murky. And of course, realizing these things is already far ahead into the game, having observed this and already tried a lot of things. But in the beginning, I just had heartburn, like at night. But I also couldn't stop eating, because eating was my main method to stay alive, if you will. Because this world is short on spirit if you've been raised in a city wearing shoes and stuff, and all these layers of clothes. You're literally being separated from spirit. So, to cure myself of these so-called problems, I had to become very inventive, stop buying so much stuff, and use what I had available. Now I'm asking myself, if this were natural, like not impacted by humans, what would animals eat here? I mean, there has to be a simple way to survive in these forests. But it's so hard to find it. And that to me is a real problem. So what can you eat? You can eat insects, of course. Okay. I've already tried. It's trying. Of course hunting, but that's hard because there's little game, plus at least here, you know, you have to have like a permission, and then, you know, only in certain areas and stuff. Like the fruit from oak trees, probably. I mean, mushrooms, possibly. Tree sap. I mean, I know what the vervets in South Africa have eaten, with whatever was edible. Sometimes even leaves, flowers. But their winter is not as severe as here. So it's a different environment, but of course, if you see the contrast, then it's probably similar. So now I'm used to living off fruits the entire year. Any vegetable that you want the entire year. And what I see in the forest is actually nothing that I could eat or nothing I could live off. Because the first problem I would then face, so now I'm showing you how I do problem solving, and then you can do it with whatever you're doing. You have to, you start at your situation. I want to spend more time in forests. It annoys me that I always have to bring food, and that this food never satisfies. Plus I want to get rid of all this starch stuff, and I want to get rid of a lot of the stuff that I eat. I mean, I drink tea here, oolong tea. Where does that come from? You know, me drinking oolong tea that came from somewhere from China causes all kinds of problems in the environment. So if I learn and to actively choose to find, you know, I know you can drink tea from pine trees, tea. Okay, but what else? Okay, now you start scratching the surface of what is being presented. You know, I'm in the phase now, I feel comfortable in nature, I can hold my ground somewhat, I have made a lot of experiences, now I want to dive deeper. It's like couples facing erectile problems or lack of lust. Well, you can deal with diet, change your entire diet, start leading a more active lifestyle, because if you feel unattracted to your partner, then you two probably have been slacking off and growing apart. So the only way to get attracted to each other again and have the mojo flowing and get the magic back into your life, which of course you then have to protect from invasion from others, is you have to make experiences together. Go hiking together, get to know each other. You don't right away start with the tantra, you build up to it. And that is basically the husband has to be really patient here, because it's often, you know, for a woman to open up to her man, it takes a lot of time, because she actually needs to want to be close to him. And then the question is, of course, do you want to have children again? Is there a way of having sex without having children? You know, I'm just saying. Mantak Chia probably teaches you things. So problem solving also means information. You can get information through spirit simply by sitting with the problem and then observing your surroundings. And the problem that's most relevant to you, if you keep focusing on it and observing it, let's say you feel like the way you move, like there's something off with the way you move. So first of all, you have to look at your surroundings and then see the way other people move, because that's probably the way you move. Because we often adjust ourselves to our surroundings. And this is then the first step that you take in, you know, a long, you know, it's gonna stretch itself out for many years. A very painful experience of distancing yourself from the mob. So you stop to identify with the people you see and you start looking for idols. So for me, in certain ways, it was Gandhi, Ido Portal, the lead singer of Disturbed, in certain ways. You know, I have idols that motivate me, that push me through. But my basic idol is, you know, also, you should also look at your father. Sometimes we idolize people that deserve a bit less credit, because sometimes maybe a lot also came from you. I'm just saying. A lot that is being taught by words in a world that is being ruled by salesmen is often a lot of bogus. It's just stuff people say to sell themselves better. And then you give them credit for what they've said. But you could never learn from them, because a child learns through observation and then mimicking. So the way we treat each other, the way we treat ourselves, is just a reflection of what we've been shown in our early upbringing. And that, to transform that, is really, really hard. I mean, it's really, really hard. For instance, I sit here, I'm a man with a lot of sexual energy, or potential sexual energy. It's just, you know, I have a lot of pressure, like a lot of pressure. There's a lot of heat in me, which is why my diet sometimes has to be a bit more cooling, less coffee, less spices that increase the heat. Because maybe, you know, I'm an Aquarius, but everyone is made of water to a large degree. I don't think that being an Aquarius has that much of an effect, but maybe I do. I don't know. I have to observe. But I clearly have different things to deal with than other people. Like my lower back is problematic, which is why I keep strengthening it, which is why I keep looking for stability, because I have recognized the problem. So in your journey to solving problems, there's the point where you have to acknowledge the fact that there are things that are to a certain degree problematic. Which means, you know, good choice. I mean, what does that mean? It means, you know, you're gonna have a lot of time dealing with problems, and it's gonna drive you insane, but you're gonna get better with it. And the more you face, you know, you take one problem, it's like sugar addiction, porn addiction, because if you've been raised in this society, you'll have more than enough problems to keep you busy for 2 decades. So take it bit by bit. I mean, I can sit here because I've put in the work. But there's still stuff I'm working on. Like my lower back is a constant reminder that this environment is hostile, is toxic, that there is a better way of living. And I'm still looking for it, trying to stabilize it. And all I can see is that it takes a lot of hard work. Which is why I've been honing my mind. I cleaned it. I got rid of all, you have to like de-root. First you have to see the problem, and that's already problematic. Because right now you don't think it's a problem. To you it's just normal, right? That's just how everyone does it. You get up, you drink a coffee. And then 50 years into this, or 20 or 10, suddenly you have severe heartburn. And you get pushed around by doctors, stuff being put into your colon, into your throat, like tubes and pipes and feces samples. You hand them in and stuff. And in the end they just say, well, maybe you should eat less cake. So I kept looking for solutions, and life presented them to me, because I said I'm not gonna go to doctors anymore. I'll just have faith and trust, but I also keep working on this. And then life presented me with certain instructions from people also that came sometimes, but you have to want to change. And then it's stuff like do an anorganic sulfur cleanse. I just did it. I also cleansed with chlorine dioxide and DMSO. I just did it. I have no idea what it did. Possibly it did something. I don't know. I just did it. Somebody told me, I just did it. And then I just did it. The anorganic sulfur, I just did it for 7 weeks. Lived completely vegan ketogenic during that time. And then I started to fall back, because what I realized is you're still used to these things, so you have to transition, out of this problematic lifestyle. So I had to transition into ketogenic. And now I'm still transitioning. And I'm slowly but surely getting used to it, because I think it's less your body that has to get used to the food. It's mostly your mind. But it could be that your body has to start accepting this different type of food. And we always talk about receptors and stuff, sugar receptors or whatever. You switch then to oil fat kind of receptors. But what I can say from today is that I think it's mostly happening in your mind. You have to accept the different kind of diet. Just as, you may see that you start to change, you're going to be alone a lot, you're going to crave for company, and then you see people who also crave for company going cycling with their electric bikes in groups of 20, because, just one wasn't enough. And then they're like, oh yeah, we had a good time, but they never went to the edge. I mean, I really went to the edge. And for some time I experienced how it would feel like to just live off of spirit. And then I got thrown back into my body, and it was like, welcome to the suck. You know, now you've got your homework cut out for you. So then I started to put my mind to use. And for that I learned the Rubik's Cube. You can learn puzzling. In order to solve problems, you can teach yourself crochet. Any craft you learn. Hiking barefoot. Hiking in general, going into nature. Right, bushcraft. But I would stay away from just making huts and cutting down trees everywhere. I mean, we don't do that. We don't just barge into nature and just cut down trees. You know, that's like industry. That's Mordor, orc people. I'm just saying, you know, we appreciate the fact that there is a tree. We may borrow its strength to put up a slackline or maybe a hammock for some time, but we don't put nails into trees. You know, we don't put up bird nests. I mean, birds, let them solve their own problems. I mean, if there are not enough holes for birds to nest in, then we should simply plant more trees and then it will happen naturally. But if I put a nail, you know, like you have the problem, you think, oh, there's not enough trees for birds to nest in. And then you take the ones, you know, like old trees with holes in it. And then you take the ones you have and you nail something into it. And then the tree gets sick and dies. Well, there you go. Now you've got a dead tree. You know, now all kinds of like insects can crawl into it. So people don't even see how they just create more problems. I mean, they never even considered this because it's like, you know, they've got like all these ideas nailed to their forehead. Like their third eye is completely closed off. They only look at life like this.